We are live.
Thank you. Good evening, San Fernando. I am Mayor Joel Fajardo. I am hereby calling to order the successor agency to the San Fernando Redevelopment Agency meeting. It is 6:20 p.m. We will begin with roll call by our city clerk, Julia Fritz.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Board Member Mary Mendoza.
Present.
Board Member Robert Gonzalez. He is absent. Board Member Sylvia Ballin.
Present.
Vice Chair Hector Pacheco.
Present.
And Chair Joe Fajardo.
Thank you. I am here. We do have a quorum. I will move to approve the agenda of the successor agency meeting. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Ms. Fritz.
Yes. Board Member Mendoza.
Yes.
Board Member Gonzalez is absent. Board Member Ballin.
Yes.
Vice Chair Pacheco.
Yes.
Chair Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. Ms. Fritz, do we have any public statements for the successor agency meeting?
No, we do not have any for this evening for the successor agency.
Thank you. Therefore, I will move to approve the consent calendar for the successor agency meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ballin. Roll call, please, Ms. Fritz.
Board Member Mendoza.
Yes.
Board Member Gonzalez absent. Board Member Ballin.
Yes.
Vice Chair Pacheco.
Yes.
And Chair Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. Is there any agency discussion?
No.
I see none. Staff communication, Mr. Kimball? He nods his head no. Therefore, I will move to adjourn the successor agency meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mendoza. Roll call, please, Ms. Fritz.
Board Member Mendoza.
Yes.
Board Member Gonzalez is absent, excuse me. Board Member Ballin,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pacheco,
Yes.
and Chair Fajardo.
Yes, the motion does carry. It is 6:22 p.m. We have adjourned the successor agency meeting at the same time that we call to order the regular San Fernando City Council meeting. Once again, we will start with roll call. Ms. Fritz.
Councilmember Mendoza. You're on mute.
Present.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Gonzalez, he is absent. Councilmember Ballin,
Present.
Vice Mayor Hector Pacheco,
Present.
and Mayor Joe Fajardo.
I too am present. We have a quorum. If all will please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Please place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. We are now at the approval of the agenda for the regular San Fernando City Council meetings. Are there any items to delete? Seeing none and knowing of no items to walk on, I will move to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Pacheco. Roll call, please. Ms. Fritz.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez, he is absent. Councilmember Ballin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco,
Yes.
Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. We have decorum and order printed in the agenda. Ms. Fritz, do we have public statements for the regular San Fernando City Council meeting?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, council members, we do have public statements. The first public statement I will read this evening is from Sarah Rowe Ahern. I am a small business owner in San Fernando. My partner and I run a dance studio located on San Fernando Road. We have been forced to close for the past 5 months, and with the exception of 3 weeks that we were allowed to operate at a limited capacity. 5 months with no rent assistance, not even as much as a plan for how we are supposed to get through. We feel abandoned. Gyms, fitness studios, and artists are among the hardest hit. during this pandemic. Our business is months behind in our rent payments, tens of thousands of dollars we are still expected to pay back with no revenue coming in. A can't evict rule is simply not enough. We are able to just get out of our lease. We are not able to get out of our lease. Regardless, if we make it or not, we will owe the remaining payments of our lease term, putting us in an immense amount of personal debt and putting our personal assets at risk. This is not acceptable. We will not survive this without rent assistance for our small business. As a small business owner in San Fernando, I'm asking for a plan of action. What is the plan for rent assistance for small businesses? All small businesses affected by this second closure. We can no longer play the lottery of applying for grants. We need guaranteed assistance. We can no longer play the waiting game. We need answers now. Thank you for your time. The next public statement is from Liana Stepania, and she is the San Fernando Library Manager. Good evening. I hope you and your family and friends are well and safe. I would like to update you about the San Fernando Library's resources and services and virtual programs that are being offered for the residents of San Fernando. But first and foremost, our free lunch grab and go service has ended. We hosted a total of 27 programs and served 383 lunches to the youth of San Fernando. In addition, take-home activity sheets have been distributed to the participants of the lunch and sidewalk service programs. The sidewalk service picking up requested library materials continues, which allows customers to request materials online or over the phone and pick the items up from the library between 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday. So far, 242 San Fernando residents have picked up library materials. The staff is also available to answer questions over the phone, Monday through Friday, between 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. The library receives an average of 200 calls a week. We are very pleased that our residents rely on library assistance during the pandemic, and we are also working on expanding our services beyond the sidewalk service model. We also offer virtual story time and programming. For example, Maker Money, Transformation Tuesday, Wellbeing Wednesday, Arts and Culture Thursday, Fun Friday, Stories, and more Saturday. Please visit our website at lacountylibrary.org for more information and resources. Also, follow us on Facebook and feel free to contact us at the library. Thank you and stay safe. And the last public statement submitted is from Arturo Garcia Mendoza, Field Representative for the Office of Assemblywoman Luz Rivas. Good evening, Council, City staff, and community members watching live on YouTube or Facebook. My name is Art Garcia, and I represent Assemblywoman Luz Rivas in the City of San Fernando. Census outreach has been a priority for the Assemblywoman, and I would remiss tonight. I think he says I would be remiss tonight if I didn't stress the importance of filling out your census questionnaire. There are multiple ways to respond. Visit my2020census.gov or call 844-330-2020 or return the questionnaire you received at your home. Recently, the Assemblywoman was elevated to the chair of Joint Legislative Committee on Emergency Management, which she is very happy to chair. The Assemblywoman is well aware of the extreme heat and wildfire events that our district is prone to and is committed to leveraging her position for the benefit of AD 39 and all Californians. One brief update from Assemblywoman Luz Rivas as chair, our state is experiencing a record-breaking and persistent heat wave. Our electrical usage has put a strain on California's ISO electrical system. In order to prevent power outages, ISO issued a statewide flex alert. You can do your part to prevent rolling blackouts by setting your air conditioner to 78 degrees or higher if your health permits, using major appliances after 3 p.m., and turning off all unnecessary lights. Our team has been working on EDD issues since March. If you and resolving outstanding casework for our constituents has been one of the Assemblywoman's priorities. Please don't hesitate to contact our office for assistance with EDD or other state-related issues. 818-504-3911. Thank you for your time, City Council, staff, and community members. And that
Thank
is
you.
the end of public statements.
I appreciate that. We are now moving, let me see if I can restart this video. There we go. We are now moving forward to our first and only presentation today. This is a proclamation celebrating the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. And this was placed on the agenda by Councilmember Mary Mendoza.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you see me fine? Okay. The 100th anniversary of Women's Right to Vote ad hoc committee was started the month when safer at home orders were given. We had plans to include the community, which had to be changed due to COVID-19. In 1948, women began the fight for the right to vote. They organized and protested and created a women's suffrage movement. In 1920, women won the right to vote. Today, the city of San Fernando commemorates this historic milestone for the women, and I'm proud to be a part of it. I'm honored to have the opportunity to read the proclamation of the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. So here we go. And the proclamation is Women's Right to Vote 100th Anniversary. Women, whereas on August 18th, 2020 marks the 100th anniversary and ratification of the 19th Amendment of the United States Constitution, giving women the right to vote in the United States. Whereas California was the 18th state to ratify the 19th Amendment on November 1st, 1919. Whereas California women gained the right to vote with the passage of Amendment 8 to the state constitution in 1911, nearly a decade before women voted nationally. Whereas the fact that today women are active in local, state, and national government and are running for office in unprecedented numbers reminds us that we all follow the footsteps of these resolute American suffragists. Whereas the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution has played an important role in advancing this right for all women. Whereas this historic centennial offers an unparalleled opportunity to commemorate a milestone of democracy and to explore its relevance to the issues of equal rights today. Now, therefore, the San Fernando City Council hereby proclaim August 18th, 2020 as Women's Equality Day, marking the 100th anniversary of the enactment of the 19th Amendment, celebrating the achievement of women and recommitting to realizing gender equality in the city of San Fernando. It was signed August 17th, 2020, and here's the proclamation. Hopefully you can all see it. There we go.
I can see it, but not the wording on it, but I can see
Okay.
the beautiful framing.
Okay, thank you. So the ad hoc committee, we also would like to have a mural commemorating the 100th anniversary of the women's right to vote. So we would like to collaborate with possibly a nonprofit or Cesar Chavez Academy. Oh my goodness. With a mural dedicated to women's suffrage. So hopefully we can get that started and going. And member Valen was also on the committee with me, and I'd like to see if she has a few words that she'd like to say.
Well, I think if we go with the mural commemorating this anniversary and the movement, that'll probably be a first in the United States for any city to have such a mural. So I think we did great work, Councilmember Mendoza. How this is such a wonderful anniversary, but it's a very sad day in the United States because we have President Trump who's trying to suppress everyone's vote, male, female, and we can't let that happen. And if you're receiving your meds in the mail, you need to worry. If you're receive a check, Social Security, you need to worry. And I'm bringing this up during this very important moment in history because I cannot believe we're celebrating 100 years of women having the right to vote. And here we are in August, and we have a president that wants to suppress everyone's vote. It's actually very disgusting, and I'm very, very disappointed. But the good news is the Democratic Convention started today, right? So that's the good news. Hopefully we can soon say President Biden. But thank you, everyone. I'm looking forward to the mural. I'm going to advocate. I'm going to do everything I can. And by the way, it does take funds. So I'm really hoping that our council members will contribute toward having that mural completed. We don't know who we're going to partner with, but a little bit of money from each of the council members will go a long way. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thanks. Very, very important milestone. Like you said, Ms. Ballin, it's almost even more important today in a lot of ways. Voting is just so crucial to our democracy. It was honestly very shameful that it took so long for women to gain this right. But in 2020, our democracy truly hangs in the balance. I know people say that every election, but this one seems very, very important. In our history, we've had a lot of important elections before. A lot of times we go from great progress to great retrenchment, and democracy is never easy. But I am very much interested in honoring the right to vote and encouraging voting among everybody. And I echo those comments that our democracy is really at stake, and we have to be as vigilant as ever, considering the war on the post office happening right now. We see President Trump basically going around with a baseball bat, hitting all the mailboxes out like all the high school students used to do back in the day. And it's very scary. So I think especially young people at this point in time really do need to exercise our right to vote. And I'm very honored to have this as part of our city council this year. I absolutely am all for fundraising for the mural. I think it'd be great to find a great area for it, maybe in City Hall or somewhere like that where people can really engage with it. And I think, yeah, if we all put our heads together, we can find so many people in San Fernando interested in helping out. I'm sure the Chamber of Commerce, I'm sure the library, I'm sure all kinds of people would want to be a part of, something so special. I think if we're going up with a mural, we should definitely do as much as we can and really hit it out of the park. So I'm excited for that. And thank you for including us and looking forward to more.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Mendoza, for bringing forward this very important issue. I love the idea of a mural, and we will have an opportunity to speak about that a little bit later tonight. I can only concur with the Vice Mayor as well that the suffrage movement took too long to happen. And the fact that women were disenfranchised from voting for so many years in our nation's history is a stain that will never be removed. But what we can do is remind everyone of the importance of equality, the importance of voting, and I think that you've brought forward a really wonderful issue. So thank you once again. Thank you. Having said that, we are now moving forward to the consent calendar. Are there any items to remove from consent?
I'd like to remove item 2, pool item 2 for discussion.
Okay, are there any other items to pull for discussion? There being none, I will move to approve the consent calendar with the removal of item 2 for discussion. Does someone second?
Second.
Second.
Second by Mendoza. Roll call, please, Ms. Fritz.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez, he is absent. Councilmember Ballin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco,
Yes.
and Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. We are now at item number 2. This was pulled by Councilmember Bellin. Would you like to lead us in the discussion?
Yes, I would. I'd like to ask our city clerk, Julia, are our county clerks ready for the election in November? Do you feel they're ready to go? And I believe there's going to be a huge volume.
I, as much as I would like to answer for them, yes, I really can't answer for them. They seem to be very well organized and strong follow-up on all of the items that they are requesting from the cities to submit. But as far as are they ready? I
Okay,
really can't.
well, I'm going to save you on that because I'd like you to come back at a later date and give us an update when you speak to them.
Okay.
The other thing I'd like to know we can do at one time, our residents could drop the ballots off here at City Hall. Well, not at City Hall, but at City Hall at the front desk where the city clerk resides. And I'm wondering, do we have that option? Because now that President Trump wants to undermine our ability to vote and remove mailboxes and what have you, we need to come up with a plan A, B, and C. And if you can find out if we can do that, I know this is COVID time, and I'm hoping that in November, City Hall will be open during, at least for a good period of time during the election.
Okay.
So our residents can come in and drop off their ballot. That would be really critical to me.
Okay.
And
So,
I have another question for you.
yes.
I'm very concerned about poll workers because there always seems to be a shortage of poll workers. And I want you to know that I did talk to the attorney this morning, and I'm so concerned about a lack of poll workers. I'd like you to do a presentation maybe at our next council meeting. What is the process to apply to become a poll worker? I actually would like to do that, but not in the city of San Fernando. Okay, I would do it in the city of LA. I would love to do it in the city of San Fernando, but I think as we have some council members up for reelection, it just, people would not be comfortable with that. But I definitely want to step up. Every vote counts. So again, Richard said I could if I chose to, but I just think the perception just would not be appropriate. So I would like to step up as a poll worker in the city of LA. But I also want to do all we can, Nick, to encourage our young people to step up as poll workers as well. So we need to do something to motivate poll workers, not only here in our city, but throughout the United States. So let's be that big voice. And with that, I would like to see you come back and with a report and to find out if in fact they can drop their ballot off here. And I need to understand, what are they going to do? Are they just going to have their trucks out on 6N? I'm not quite sure what they're asking for with this agreement, Nick.
I believe, so this agreement is, I think they're gonna use 6N as a staging area. So they're gonna need to deploy, to all the different voting centers in the area to pick up ballots. So basically they're just staging people. It won't be an actual public ballot in 6N. It's just where they're gonna stage their vehicles, to deploy the different ballot centers or voting centers. We'll definitely, the city clerk can definitely bring back an informational item. I think that's a great idea on how you become a poll worker. I think that's a worthwhile thing to bring to council. And we also, I do know we are, the county's looking at a few different permanent vote by mail locations in town, which is basically kind of a mailbox, but it's more permanent. And then it's specifically for voting. It seems like they have a grid, and it's like X number of permanent vote by mail per 15,000 residents. So they're very specific on sort of their criteria for those vote by mail, permanent vote by mail areas. So we've suggested a few areas, and we're going to be doing a few site visits, I think this week, to meet some of their county workers out at one of our areas. And we'll kind of go from there. But we can come back with more information on where those vote by mail centers will be our boxes will be, probably is the next meeting, September 8th.
Okay, thank you very much. And Joe, you can take it from here.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, Councilmember Mendoza?
No, no comment.
Vice Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I would still very much like to see, and Nick, I don't want to surprise you with this, but I did mention it last time we talked about voting, how we can declare Election Day as a city holiday. I know obviously some people are essential workers and some can't really, maybe necessarily take the whole day off. And I know we have some paid hours to go. But I think having a resolution that as Election Day, as a city holiday really goes above and beyond just giving, a couple hours, paid hours to go vote. I think it kind of sends the message that it's very important in the city of San Fernando to vote. And at the very least, if it's just something on paper, I think that's something that the council would want to consider, or at least I would. And so, maybe we could have some more info on that going forward. Secondly, I noticed in the report that although the county is having vote centers open up to 10 days, it looks like we're only planning Las Palmas and Rec Park to open as 5 days. Is it at all possible for us to be open for the full 10 days as well? And if so, how much more would it cost? And is that something that we can deliberate on? Because I think there will be support for us to be open for the full 10 days if possible. Or am I reading that wrong? I'm not sure exactly how to make of it in the report.
I can definitely look into that and get confirmation. If I do receive confirmation that it is 10 days, with your approval, may I send a memo to council boxes? And if it is 5 days, then I can present some alternative or options that we can take and the costs involved, etc. At the next.
What do you think, Nick? I mean, I don't know if you want to jump in and give some insight.
Yeah, I mean, so I just want to, I don't know that it will cost us anymore because county or much more. I mean, we have to open and close the county is really responsible for staffing all of these, the vote centers, since it's a county election. So we'll let us get quick clarification. I think
Cool.
we can bring it all back. It's probably, we can have a big election item on September 8th to kind of, include sort of all the comments and give some additional feedback. I'm saying September 8th because I'm assuming that we'll have the information by then. If not, we'll make sure to update council on what the date would be where we have all this information.
Great, thank you.
Having said that, Mr. Kimball, it appears that you have direction to do research to bring information back. But at this point, I will move to approve item 2 as stated in the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, Ms. Fritz?
Yes, Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez, he is absent. Councilmember Ballin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco,
Yes.
and Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. We are now at item number 4, but I know that there are some people who worked very hard on items number 5 and 6. And so I would like to actually move to items 5, followed by 6 first, and then we will return to 4. 5 is a consideration to approve a letter of agreement with the San Fernando Public Employees Association related to Government Code Section 20903, Retirement Incentive Benefit. My video will be off, but I will still be here. Mr. Kimball, if you would like to lead us on this item.
Sure. Very quickly. So over the last few months, as COVID has kind of imposed a number of economic restrictions on many businesses and governments, local governments throughout the entire United States, a lot of local governments have had to look at cost-cutting measures to align our expenditures with our revenues that are coming in. We are all taking a pretty significant hit in revenue. So one of the ways that City Council has worked to reduce expenditures is through offering a voluntary retirement incentive program for employees. So for the last few months, staff has been meeting with employee bargaining units to identify those positions in the city that A, are of retirement age, B, are interested in retiring, and C, the city has a plan that we can, continue to provide service in an alternate way to accommodate that person retiring, because when they retire, per CalPERS rules, we do need to permanently unfill that position to be able to recognize some cost savings. So as part of that effort, the next agenda item is actually the resolution identifying the particular positions. This item is in agreement with the SEIU Local 721 representing the San Fernando Public Employees Association to sort of lay out the terms and conditions between the city and SEIU with regards to the retirement incentive program. There are three main provisions. One is that the city will offer the retirement incentive to about 11 unit employees that are identified in Exhibit A of the agreement. If at least 8 employees participate, so we need 8 employees to get the cost savings that we need for this fiscal year, the city agrees to a temporary prohibition of layoffs for SFP EA or the SEIU employees through December 31st, 2021, which is approximately a year from the end of the retirement period. Should the city face future economic uncertainty, and that is defined by ongoing expenditures exceed ongoing revenues by more than $500,000, then the parties will agree to return to the table to bargain further for further reductions in costs. And then in exchange for that, the SEIU employees agree to work with the city to implement a number of proposed changes that will help offset the service impact of having to permanently unfill a number of positions throughout the city. So, we're going to have to make some organizational changes and reclassify a few current active employees to make sure that the work continues to get done in the fashion that our residents are used to. So this is a relatively short and to the point letter of agreement between the two parties. We've both kind of reached tentative agreement, and this was sort of a prerequisite to moving forward with the next item tonight, which would be adoption of the retirement incentive and opening the period for which eligible employees may submit for retirement. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions, and if you need any clarification for the agreement, I can assist.
Thank you. Councilmember Ballin.
I'm 100% supportive. I have no questions.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Well, I just want to say that I'd like to congratulate the employees that will be able to take advantage of the retirement incentive. I received an incentive when I retired from Los Angeles Mission College, and I have beautiful memories of working there, and I felt blessed being there as well. Taking the opportunity to retire early by taking the incentive was one of the best decisions I ever made. Retirement allows us to do many things that we can't do because we're working. We can wake up whenever we want. We can do things whenever we want. And retirement gives us the time to spend with your family and friends, take care of our health, volunteer, or become a city council member like I did. So the future has no boundaries, and I wish them all the employees well as they make their retirement decisions. I know that these retirements are going to be paced out, or they can retire at any time till I believe it was November, till about November, from August to November, sometime in between. And so I just wanted to wish them all well. And that's all. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Thank you. I've already cast a no vote against the labor item, but I don't see any reason to continue to oppose the city going down this route now that the union has an agreement with city staff. So thank you, Nick, and thank you to our legal counsel for bringing them to the table. We will all try on city council to get the best deal for the city of San Fernando. And I am very personally afraid that our services will be impacted. So I know that my colleagues and I will work with staff to identify any kind of shortfalls. I encourage residents and visitors to reach out to us when you do notice any, and we will work to make sure that no services suffer in San Fernando as a result. I do hope that the projections on revenue savings come to fruition. And otherwise, I'm, like I said, I see no further need for me to continue to oppose us negotiating this. So with that being said, I'll yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. And once the last employee who you speculate might accept this offer, once that last employee retires, and how much will, or what percent of this is this of what we need in order to balance our budget? Does this get us to the halfway mark? Does this get us to the 3/4 way mark? Does it bring us all there? You're on mute though.
So we adopted the current year budget with an $800,000 shortfall. If all employees that are identified end up participating, we'll actually should experience a close to $1 million, next when it's fully implemented for a full year in savings. So that should get us all the way, gets us all the way to close that particular gap. So then that's
So it basically covers the it basically balances our budget 100%.
correct.
And then a little bit of a cushion as well.
Right. In case there are additional impacts through COVID.
Great. And so I too want to congratulate both the employees and staff for coming to this agreement. I know that there are going to be a lot of people retiring who we are going to dearly miss. And I think that given the high caliber and high work ethic of employees that we have and the immense pool of talent, it's inevitable that when someone retires, we are going to miss their contributions to the city. At the same time, I am relieved that we were able to come to this agreement because it effectively prevents us from having to even consider layoffs. And to think that people can retire with dignity when with their benefits intact, it is a very moving feeling to know that we all work together to save people's jobs and to continue to provide great services to the city. And so I have been in support of this from the beginning. I'm in support of it now. And I think that we brought everyone's great ideas to the table to find out how we could humanely and quickly address some of the economic issues that the world is facing and how we handle that in San Fernando. So having said that, thank you all once again to everyone who assisted with this. And I will move to approve item number 5 per staff's recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please, Ms. Fritz. You're on mute.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez is absent. Councilmember Ballin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco,
Yes.
and Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. We are now at item number 6, which is a consideration to adopt a resolution approving the list of job classifications eligible for retirement under the provisions of Government Code Section 2903 or 20903 rather. Mr. Kimball?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the companion measure to the item that we just discussed, the letter of agreement. So this is the last step in the process. So tonight we're asking council to adopt the resolution identifying the list of job classifications, which is included in your packet. I think there are 9 job classifications encompassing a total of 13 employees that would be potentially eligible to apply for the retirement incentive. Again, the retirement incentive is 2 years worth of service credit, and the employees need to separate no later that we're opening the window of retirement for 90 days. So they need to separate no later than Friday, November 20th, 2020. So with that, again, this is the final action, and we'll file all this with CalPERS and open up the period that will effectuate when our employees can take advantage of this particular benefit and voluntarily separate by November 20th.
Thank you. Questions, Councilmember Ballin?
It's going to be very nice for those of you that have chosen to take the golden handshake to finally be the boss of you, other than your spouse maybe. That'll be giving you a few little honeydews. But you don't have to get up early. You don't have to meet a deadline. And you could just enjoy yourself. It's a big difference. It just takes so much stress off of your shoulders. And within 1 week, it's like, San Fernando? So, enjoy. And I'm glad that we came to this place, that we were able to offer you the golden handshake. Congratulations. You all deserve it.
Thank you. Councilmember Mendoza,
I have no comments. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
No comments. Thank you.
I have none, and therefore I will move to approve item 6 per staff's recommendation. Do I have a second?
Second?
Roll call, Ms. Fritz?
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez, absent. Councilmember Ballin,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco,
Yes.
Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. Thank you. Going back to the original order, we are at item number 4, a discussion regarding COVID-19 response efforts and approval of proposed recommendations. Mr. Kimball and I discussed some items that would be germane to this update. And there's also one item that wasn't specifically mentioned in here, but if my understanding from the city attorney is correct, this would still fall under here due to this being a response to the COVID matter. And this was preparing a resolution to oppose Donald Trump's intended destruction of the United States Postal Service. And I had spoken to Mr. Padilla and Mr. Kimball prior about this. Mr. Padilla, given that this is important in light of COVID, do you concur that it fits under this agenda item? You had a perplexed look on your face, which leads me to believe that I might have misunderstood you.
Well, no, I mean, I guess I hadn't originally made the connection specifically with COVID, but I do see the connection now. I mean, obviously there's extraordinary circumstances that affect the city election that are essentially driven by COVID. I think it would probably be appropriate, and I think your recommendation was to simply have a letter, expressing support for the Postal Service.
That is correct.
Yeah, so I think we're probably fine.
I think of a letter and a resolution as somewhat interchangeable in terms of terms, but I understand that there might be a distinction. And before we get into that discussion, though, of the United States Postal Service, Mr. Kimball, if you can give us an update on the COVID testing, on city facility closures, on health order enforcement, along with some of the concerns that were brought forward by the Education Commission in terms of, and let me make sure that I'm getting this correctly. I know it was related to the Wi-Fi access for students, but actually, if you will start on that issue, we will circle back to the Wi-Fi right after.
Yeah, so actually, I'm going to have Mr. Howe. We prepared a weekly every council meeting. We're going to update, have a little quick PowerPoint. So Mr. Howe is going to give that baseline presentation.
Mayor Fajardo, council members, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me try to get this to full screen. All right. So if you'll recall, at the last council meeting, we provided a brief presentation on the city's efforts. This is an update to that with our latest statistics. So as of August 13th, this is where we stand within LA County, 218,000 cases, 5,200 deaths. Locally within San Fernando, we have an increase to 733 cases, and we've gone from 15 deaths now to 17 deaths. The LA County Safer at Home order of the public health officer was updated last week on August 12th. The updates pertained exclusively to schools and childcare facilities, so there were no other significant changes to other types of institutions or businesses, things of that nature. The updates to schools really provided just a little bit more detail on how and when schools may be able to request waivers from the prohibition on in-person instruction, and clarified some other matters related to child care facilities. Here locally in the city, just as a recap, City Hall was open for a couple weeks from June through July. Then due to current events at the time, City Hall reclosed to the public except by special appointment until earlier this month. Las Palmas and Rec Park have only been open recently to the public as cooling centers during heat events. And actually this week, it's most likely that each day will trigger a qualifying heat event. So we anticipate Las Palmas to be open, Las Palmas Park to be open every day this week as a cooling center. City Hall reopened to the public on Wednesday, August 5th, and now is open on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays in the afternoons from noon until 5:30. Elsewhere in terms of city regulations, we implemented the outdoor services permit, which allowed outdoor services for businesses citywide: restaurants, barbershops, hair salons, gyms and fitness centers, personal care establishments, and places of worship. We facilitated those services on sidewalks and private parking lots back in July. We just had our third weekend of street closures on San Fernando Road between Brand Boulevard and Maclay. Those run starting Saturday, late Saturday afternoon through Sundays for mall businesses to provide and offer their services outdoors. Additionally, Council on August 3rd approved an executive order for additional operational requirements for San Fernando swap meet. Those included additional informational signage at the entrances and throughout, additional hand washing stations at the entrances, restrooms, and throughout, and a specified maximum capacity limit of 50%. Monitoring continues by city staff, by community preservation staff, on the continued compliance of the swap meet operators with these requirements. In terms of tenant protection, this is just a recap of what has been in place. If you recall, LA County did extend the eviction moratorium protections through September 30th, and those prohibit evictions for non-payment of rent, as well as prohibits late fees or interest charges on unpaid rent. Consequently, City of San Fernando's rent increase moratorium, which is an additional protection, was extended to September 30th as well. And those protections are for both residential and commercial tenants. What is new since our last update is the LA County COVID-19 rent relief program. So announcements went live late last week, and the program went live for applications earlier today. And it offers up to, depending on income level of the household, up to $7,500 or $10,000 of rent relief for qualified tenants. Applications will be accepted between today and end of August 31st. And interested folks can submit applications online at the site provided, or they can simply call 211 and apply over the phone. And that's available, I believe, every day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and assistance is available in multiple languages. So getting into the statistics, first one is the daily number of persons tested, and this is through August 10th, so this is through last week. The 7-day average is now, it has shown an increase to 17,443. That's up from just under 16,500 the last time we provided an update. Total persons tested, the aggregate number, we went from just under 1.8 million to now close to 2.1 million. Percent of persons testing positive. So this is a 7-day average, again, through August 10th. That number has shown a decrease to 6.1%. When we last reported this, that 7-day average was at 8.9%. So you are seeing a hopefully a meaningful decrease in the percent of persons testing positive. Daily number of hospitalized, we are again seeing a bit of a decrease, so down to about 1,341. That represents a decrease from the last time we reported the number when it was over 1,800. Now, death rate by ethnicity. These are numbers that are not real promising. The mortality rate has actually increased since we last reported this. So as of August 16th, the mortality rate is 48. It was 42 when we last reported it. And as you see, going through the different racial or ethnic groups, there continues to be significant disparity in the impact based on ethnicity as well as economic factors. That concludes staff's update. We're available for any questions, and Nick may have some other matters to touch upon as well.
Yes, thank you, Tim. Just a few kind of comments to follow up on. One of the public comments that we got from a local business owner. I do want to stress that we definitely empathize with everything that all of our businesses and everyone, employees, businesses, renters, property owners are all going through right now. These economic restrictions have been really difficult for all of us to deal with and navigate. So one of the things that Tim touched upon, some of the actions the council is taking, a lot of it has been related to allowing many of these businesses to operate in a non-traditional fashion, moving outside per the order that that was issued by the county, allowing many of these sort of traditionally indoor activities to operate outdoor. A few things that staff's kind of working on and will probably bring forward the next few weeks. One thing is we were looking into potentially sort of renting out park space to some of these activities that don't have the opportunity, don't have the setup to be able to do outdoor service on their own property. I know some other places are doing that, so we have some staff looking into the possibility of a program that's similar to that here, so that some of these businesses could generate revenue. Another thing we're looking at is a potential COVID-19 related sign ordinance. We have very prescribed rules around putting out signs. We've heard some feedback from a few business owners that allowing at least reducing some of the restrictions, at least temporarily, will allow some businesses to advertise, put a banner on the side of their building or something of that nature. That will help them just let everyone know they're open. Any deals that they might have, offering free, teeth cleanings or whatever the service may be. So we're working on a few different programs like that as well to try to loosen restrictions. I do want to emphasize that many of these, a lot of bigger government agencies and school districts are receiving direct funding to provide some of these services. I know there's been some, I know as school starts, there's a lot of concern about, whether or not there'll be, what the connection is going to be like for many of our students. And, regardless of whether you're in an affluent area or a poor area, many people don't have the bandwidth in their Wi-Fi to allow 3, 4, 5 people online at the same time. So I think that's going to be a struggle the school districts are all going to kind of have to encounter over the next few, next few months. I do know, many of the schools receive direct funding to provide that service. And the same thing with the rent relief and the various programs that are being offered to small businesses. The county and other agencies have received direct funding for that. The city has not received any direct funding to assist with any of those programs. So to the extent that we would have to send money out the door, obviously that's a council and a policy decision, especially when it comes to appropriating funds. But we'll have to cut from somewhere else. And as we just approved tonight, we're operating on a thin margin with having to make cuts to our own staff. I mean, potentially losing, 10 staff members, which is 10% of our force over the next, over the next few months. So we want to continue to advocate and definitely work through the avenues that we can facilitate, more business in the city, facilitate those small business owners and assist them with, moving forward on trying to kind of generate some revenue in these tough times. And then also, where we can sort of facilitate, our students and our local students to be able to not fall behind the curve and make sure that we, kind of put our political power behind making sure that schools are able to provide the necessary resources, to some of our local students. So, obviously we're all sort of in this together, and we're trying to, it's a bunch of different government agencies that have different, that have different goals and different reasons for which we are organized, and we're trying to work together to make the best out of this current situation. So I just kind of wanted to give an update on some of the things that we're working on, additional efforts we're working on to assist small businesses in the city, and doing what we can with sort of, again, there's been a lack of resources that have filtered down to local governments. A lot of that has been given to state and county governments, large cities, and school districts. So with that, we're here to answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you. And if council would also like to comment on sending a letter to the president, Supreme Court, postmaster, anyone who might be involved in the process of how the United States Postal Service will operate, you may comment on that as well. I will start first with Councilmember Ballin.
My heart goes out to all the small businesses. We were small business owners for many, many years, and it's very, very challenging because as our resident, Miss Sarah, said, nothing, that rent, she owes that rent every single month. She's tied to a lease, as many of our small business owners are. And I don't understand it, why the county, the city of Los Angeles, all these other places get tons of money. And the city of San Fernando, what did we get? Like $138,000 with a lot of restrictions? Isn't that correct?
That is correct. We received 100,000, and that was early on. That had pretty significant. In fact, we're still trying to navigate through some of those restrictions to even be able to implement what was already approved by council because of the red tape. And
well, it's very unfair because I really would like us to help all of the businesses that are in need, and we obviously don't have the funds to do that. Now, I'm going to go off track a little bit on this. I want to talk to the chief, and I know that he's listening in. and this is COVID related. Several of the committee members have called me over the weekend, and they're concerned um, about the police station, when someone is arrested, what precautions are taken when they're placed in the jail cell, obviously, what precautions are taken. So we have a police force that is well respected in our city. And I was asked to ask the chief, how do they handle that? If they bring somebody in the backseat of the car, are the officers taking the precautions by using a face mask, gloves? They don't know. So the committee wants to know, how are you handling this unique situation at the station?
Sure. Thank you. And good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Well, we set procedures right off the bat. Obviously, it was a big, huge concern to us as well, not only to our officers and our professional staff, as well as a public, as we interact with people on a day-to-day basis. So when we make contact with somebody in the field, we're wearing a mask 99% of the time. Of course, when our officers are driving, they drive by themselves, so not wearing a mask while they're driving, because there was no need to. But once they, an emergency, a lot of times they get out real quick. And then as soon as they have another officer there, they put their mask on, so they mask up. And then depending on the situation, they'll wear gloves as well. Before they take somebody and put them in a police car or transport them to the police station, they ask certain questions that's laid out by the county health order and the CDC. A watchman comes out and takes their temperature, make sure they're not sick in any way or not having visible signs of any sort of symptoms of COVID-19 or any other related sicknesses. Once they meet that criteria, then they're transported in the police car and transported to the police station and booked accordingly. After that, then the officers will do a wipe down in the police vehicle in a backseat area to make sure it's sanitized. They sanitize the vehicles at the beginning of the shift and at the end of the shift. That's according to our regulations that we have, our rules that we have established to maintain some safety for everybody involved. So we have a pretty good elaborate system, and I think so far it's worked. We've only had one employee that was sick and tested positive for COVID-19, and it wasn't anybody in the patrol side, which was great. It was contained right away. We took the proper procedures and precautions, sent a certain amount of people that possibly might have been subjected to it or could have been exposed, and suggested they get tested, and everybody came back negative. That employee came back 2 weeks later and is back fully to full duty and doing well. So that's what we do, and we, so far, knock on wood, we're doing quite well, and it's worked for us.
Thank you. And I have one more question for you, Chief, and I think it probably came about because of the COVID. So they did hear that someone at the police station did get COVID. So I had several committee members call me and ask me if we are now, is the council considering contracting out to the sheriffs? This comes up every couple of years. And so I could tell you, I have fought against that from day one. I'm sure all the other council members do not support it, but Nick, do you or Tony know where this is coming from? Have you heard about this before? Because this is current, that the community is a little bit concerned, and they tie it to COVID at the police station.
I believe that sheriffs are equally as vulnerable to COVID as any other officer is. So I haven't heard anything. I don't know, Chief, if Chief has, but obviously it doesn't discriminate what color uniform you wear or if you wear a uniform or not. So,
Right.
Regardless of whether we had sheriffs, LAPD, or our own police department, I don't think that the COVID has a bearing on any of that. And we've taken extraordinary steps to make sure we protect our officers. So, I think we're proud.
And as far as I haven't heard anything other, and I think too is the sheriff's department is probably a lot more susceptible to contracting or being exposed to it because they have the jail system, and we only have a temporary facility, and if they're able to, because of the zero bail policy that the state had enacted several months ago. It's pretty unlikely that anybody stays longer than a few hours in our facility unless it's a violent crime. And then if they're determined to have a violent crime, after they're booked and processed, then we ship them down to county jail and they are staying in the county system. So we keep our exposure to a minimum in our facility.
Well, see, there goes that rumor. It goes around every now and then, and not one council member has ever discussed, the current council members ever discussed going out to the sheriffs. Way back when, it was a discussion before I think any of these other council members were on board. But it's very frustrating when someone starts that rumor in the community and then they upset everyone. So thank you very much, Tony.
Thank you. Councilor Mendoza.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions regarding the Wi-Fi and things like that. Or you know what, I'm gonna start with the meetings. I'd just like to see how many people are actually attending the meetings or listening on to the meetings and listening on after, because I do have some concerns that we haven't gotten a lot of comments on them. And you know, how can we increase that communication within the residents and getting them to participate in the meetings and providing comments. I'm glad we had the one from Sarah regarding her business, but you know, we need more input from the residents and we need to hear from them as well.
So with regard to the meetings, actually, we've been averaging probably about 15 people or 10 to 15 people. In fact, I'm looking at it right now. There are 15 viewers out there watching right now that have been watching the YouTube live. And then as soon as the meetings are over, then they're uploaded. And within, 2 or 3 weeks, we'll go back and look at the statistics. And typically we're upwards of 30 to 40 views in the following couple weeks. Obviously they're up there forever, so people can always go back and add a few views and reference older meetings. So that's relatively in line with what we've seen. When we had in-person meetings, we'd usually have probably 5 to 10 people that would again, it depended on what the discussion items were, but that would attend the meetings in person. And then we'd have a number more that would after the council meeting would listen to it online. One thing I do want to update council on is we actually do have the town hall system, the town hall stream system installed. So, one of the new features that we will have as soon as we get back into the council chambers is that we will be able to live stream as the meeting is happening from the council chambers. So anyone will be able to tune into those live streams, which has not been a feature that we've ever had before. So that will be one thing that it will provide a lot more access to people that maybe can't come to the meetings in the future. I think we probably should start looking, since we may be, extending these a little bit longer, we may want to start looking at alternate methods for providing public comment. I do know that, a lot of cities do have the current, similar to what we're doing now is, you have to email in your comments prior to a certain time period. And some of them are looking at changing that since it's been a number of months now. So, we can, if council desires, we can look at alternate ways for public to provide input during the meetings.
Thank you. I'm really interested in other possibilities. I was reading in the magazine for the League of Cities that some of them have like a drive-through comment area where cars come in and drive through, someone standing there with a camera where they can speak to the council during that time of public comment. Or they provide staff with their telephone numbers, and during public comment period, they're called, and then we can listen to them during public comment as well. So I think that's something, one of the options, some of the options we should possibly look at. We need to make it a little easier for the residents and businesses to communicate with us. The other thing, and because of COVID, I think it's important. I don't know I know I've been one that's advocating for sending out letters to the residents and letting them know and keeping them updated on what's going on. But another thing, and I want to put out there, a possible town hall meeting on COVID where people can just call in. It's see the meeting on Zoom in a relaxed manner and ask questions, get feedback. There's a lot of unknowns right now, and we continue to have them. And this way they have a place where they can come in and get some information. Someone might have a question that they hadn't thought of, and they hear someone else ask the question, and everybody, and it's an environment where everybody's learning and maybe asking a question you might not have thought of asking. In regards to the letter regarding the post office, I'm completely for that letter, and I'll respond to Council Member Balance response in regards to the police department. I fully support the police department. I've lived in San Fernando my entire life, and it's it's something that I value, and I know many of the residents value the work from our police department. So replacing them with the sheriffs is not anything that I would consider now or even support in the future. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Nick, do you have any updates on the CARES Act and if any kind of federal emergency funds that San Fernando might be receiving?
Yes. Oh, let me get my video back on. Sorry, I had to go turn the AC back on here. Yeah, so we'll actually be bringing an item on September 8th. The city is receiving some direct allocation through the CARES Act that we had to clarify. We needed to get additional clarification on what those funds could be used for. So staff will be bringing back an item next week with the on September 8th that does include additional CARES Act funding. Just to kind of, as a preview, I mean, I think staff will be recommending that a majority of those funds are actually used you can use it to pay for straight time for city staff that was directly related to COVID-19 response. Obviously, the city of San Fernando's primary purpose is to make sure that we maintain public safety and public infrastructure at all times. So we need to make sure we have some sort of continuity of service. So
is there a lending program through the Treasury Department or anything we can apply for? I've heard that local and state governments have certain either municipal bonds or lending through the Treasury. I wonder if you've looked into that at all.
So I have heard of a program that you can borrow from the Treasury. The problem, I mean, the thing that you have to consider is that it's really just creating another debt. So you have to pay it back. So if it's funds that if you take out funds and spend them, you have to pay them back, in the future. And if you don't have the funding now to do whatever program you're looking to implement, I think we'd have to hesitate about whether or not we have the funds in the future to actually repay the debt. They weren't forgivable grants. They were just a loan.
I would love to have more information on them, even if your ultimate opinion might end up being that it's not the best financial decision to make.
Mm-hmm.
But I had no idea these were even available. I don't know how long they've been available, but I think it's something that City Council should definitely deliberate and reflect upon, especially if we are able to get money at some kind of low interest emergency loan type rate, or I'm not even sure what kind of incentives they might have, right? I mean, so I'm just getting more information on it for us to consider, I think would be very helpful. And, if there is another stimulus package coming through, we'll keep an eye on whatever state and local government provisions might be a part of that. Is that fair?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Secondly, real quick, to the police department, Chief, I did want to bring up, and I meant to bring this up to you offline, but Ms. Bellin reminded me. I too have definitely been hearing from residents about safety, more so for the police. They're really concerned that police have to interact with people, and I actually personally witnessed the August 2nd incident. I don't know if you remember or not, but it was a homeless incident. And I thought it was striking because the homeless individual was wearing a mask, but the 4 officers weren't. And I'm sure it was a momentary lapse, and I'm sure it was just, an oversight. But obviously, I was very concerned that we might have some officers at risk. So if we can just kind of reiterate to everybody the importance of wearing it. And I know, like, I can't imagine what it's like having to hop out and holster a gun or have a taser in your hand. So I'm sure it's difficult, but obviously it's for everybody's good. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to bring up as far as COVID on the finances, Nick. But otherwise, I think we're trying to do our best here. I think the mortality rate going up and seeing how vastly impacted Latinos and people of color are compared to everyone else, it's very, very troubling. So I'm really imploring everybody, from our police officers, our public workers, all the employees, all the residents, everybody really to still respect these shelter-in-place orders. Last question, Nick. I know I've been chirping on how I don't think that the swap meet's doing the best job. However, can you give us an update on the parks? I've been noticing, like, Heritage Park, for instance, is still closed. And I'm wondering whether it's time for us to consider where parks fit in all this. I know you already brought up renting out some facilities, but to me, like, having the tennis courts closed while the swap meet is open doesn't really make too much sense, and I'm wondering when we begin to address these other, openings.
Sure. Yeah, actually, thank you for that question. I think Recreation has been working on a plan to kind of reopen some of the quote unquote sort of activities that are allowed, safer activities or activities that are allowed by the new orders. Actually, this came up last week during the call with the county. So I want to reiterate to the public that you still cannot use recreation, like team events, competitions, games, whether it's youth or adult sports, are still, other than professional events, are not allowed in LA County. What is allowed are skill building and conditioning with very small groups of individuals, and they have to maintain social distancing at all times. So we have actually had a number of problems over the last few weekends with teams, primarily baseball teams from other areas coming in and just setting up shop and playing games on our fields, which have not been allowed. So we've taken a few steps, including moving picnic tables into the middle of the field to make it more difficult, to discourage those activities. But we are, as you mentioned, tennis is one of those activities that is allowed. We are working on reopening procedures for tennis, and then also just some basic, again, they can't be competitions. It really needs to be sort of social distance, skill building, and conditioning. So we are working on plans on reopening some of the parks in those.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like Heritage is mostly a walking park, right? Like, no one really goes there to play soccer. So I think, like, if we can be sensible about, and if people are feeling cabin fever, I know I am. I'm sure many of you are too. So we do have walkable parks. So let's definitely consider how and when is best to open them up. And finally, I did want to share some news for us to all consider. Mississippi has been a state that's opened up school. Many schools are back in session, and today many districts and schools opened as well, and to no surprise, they're having a huge outbreak. There's around 600 teachers already quarantined, 300 students already quarantined, and so I think it's important for us to also look at other states that are already opening up things like schools and daycares and so forth, and see what we can really learn. And I know we're really deferring a lot to LA County and LA Public Health and all that, which is great. But I think us as concerned citizens should also just be vigilant about what's going on around the country. So with that, I'll yield. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that that's a very good parallel to draw, or a very good example of how opening too soon can have devastating effects. And it really worries me about how many people fight the science on COVID-19 and the spread. I think that there are a lot of known facts. There's probably some unknowns about the virus, but there's a whole lot of knowns as to how it spreads. And the longer that we can keep in place these social distancing rules, these safer at home orders, until there's a vaccine, the better off we will be. With regards to the earlier comment from Councilmember Ballin, I too have never heard anyone on this city council utter any words about working with the sheriffs as opposed to San Fernando Police Department. I think that it is a perpetual rumor, and more so lie than a rumor, that comes around in election that comes around in an election year for people desperate to score some points. But going back to the other items on this agenda, I would like for staff to put together a letter to send to all interested parties who might have a say in how the U.S. Postal Service is operated, and for any council member who so chooses to sign on to this letter to be able to. And the essence of this letter would, in effect, reject the Trump administration's effort to diminish voting rights by sabotaging the U.S. Postal Service. I also received a recommendation from a friend who wanted to know if he could volunteer for the United States Postal Service. And I really like this idea, because at some point, if this does go to the Supreme Court, and the Trump administration's argument is that they simply cannot deliver all these ballots because of the cost, I think that having a backup argument, which is that there's an army of volunteers willing to help, really helps promote the case that this is all about sabotage, it's all about rigging an election, and has nothing to do with the efficacy of the post office. On that note though, Mr. Padilla, do you happen to know whether volunteers are allowed for the United States Postal Service?
I'm personally not aware. I'd be a little surprised if that were the case, given the importance of keeping mail secure and the like. I can't imagine they would allow volunteer carriers.
Well, if staff can look into it, if there is any way to volunteer, I think that there are a lot of people who would be interested in doing it to ensure that that every ballot is counted, whether it's for a Republican, Democrat, or neither. And so, hearing no objections, are there any other questions or comments? Or Mr. Kimball, do you believe that you need further direction on this agenda item?
No, I think we got plenty of feedback, and we'll work on, in addition to the letter to the Trump administration regarding the Postal Service. We'll work on continuing to develop other items that, or other programs that will facilitate assisting the community, economically over the next few months.
Thank you. Well, we have concluded item number 4. Going back once again to the regular order, we are now on item number 7, and this is the consideration to adopt a resolution setting the property tax required to meet the city's obligation for the California PERS system for the fiscal year. Mr. Kimball.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have Finance Director Diego Ibanez is going to give the very brief presentation on this item, which is an item that every year the council needs to set the rate. So we do this on an annual basis. So Diego, go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and City Council members. Each year, the city must establish a property tax levy to be used to pay the city's obligations to CalPERS for employee pension benefits. Under the direction of the City Council, staff has been trying to keep the tax rate as low as possible for residents. The maximum funding rate that is allowed is 0.284200. As you can see by the graph in the staff report on page 120 of the agenda, the tax has been decreasing in the last several years. This is due to an overall increase in the assessed property values. This year, assessed values increased by 6.4% from the previous year. This increase allows the city to decrease the tax rate from the current amount of 0.212129 per 100 of assessed value to 0.203571 of 100 assessed value, which is roughly 4% decrease savings for residents. In numbers, it's about 0.008558 per 100 assessed value. This tax reduction will raise approximately $4.4 million to cover 80% of the city's projected CalPERS cost for fiscal year 2021. This evening, staff is recommending the council adopt resolution 8024 to set the rate at 0.203571 per 100 of assessed value. Alternatively, staff is also asking council to consider keeping the tax rate at the current level of 0.212129. The current pandemic and the impact of revenues and expenditures, maintaining the current tax rate would generate an additional $185,000 to be applied to the city side fund loan. As indicated in the staff report on page 119 of the agenda, the city currently has a balance of about $8.1 million in its side fund loan that affects employees in the miscellaneous first tier and safety employees in the first and second tier. The city is expected to see personnel savings this year, but the city will see an increase in this pension cost in the coming years. This concludes staff's presentation. Any questions?
Great.
And
So, Mr. Kimball, you may.
sorry, Mayor. I just wanted to clarify what the side fund loan is, because those normal regular folks that aren't too versed in CalPERS may not understand what the side fund loan is. And it's a little bit of a misnomer. So basically back in 2012, 2013, there was a lot of reform in CalPERS. So basically where there were new reporting requirements, where CalPERS also had to do actuarials and those requirements, and those actuarial numbers had to be reported by cities. So basically in around that time, CalPERS created any pre-2013 outstanding liability, meaning the city has sent a certain amount of money to CalPERS, but because they didn't make their return on investment, we were sort of underfunded. So what they did is they took that unfunded amount prior to 2013 and created a loan out of it, and basically said, you have this amount at this point in time is $16 million. This is back in 2013. And you now have a set principal and interest payment that you need to make over the next 20 years to pay off this unfunded liability. And this wasn't just San Fernando, mind you, this is all cities in California. So that side fund loan is really just an amortization of unfunded liability prior to 2013 that the city has a very set principal and interest payment to make over the next 20 years. So we talk about the $40 million in unfunded liability. Really, this $8 million is one piece of that $40 million total unfunded liability. So the idea is there are two options that are being presented tonight. One is to lower the tax rate. The other is to slightly lower the tax rate. The other is to keep it the same and use that those additional funds to further pay down this side loan, which is currently being charged to the city at 7%. So similar to paying your mortgage off early or making extra payments on your mortgage, that would ultimately save some interest costs over the life of that sort of side fund loan with CalPERS. So I just wanted to provide that little bit of clarification, as it might not have been completely clear in the staff report.
Thank you. And Mr. Kimball and I did have an opportunity to meet earlier with some business owners regarding this matter. Now, they weren't necessarily property owners themselves, but they are part of the chamber, and had started this conversation on the premise that they wanted to learn more about this issue. I suspected before the meeting that the meeting was actually called more so to use as a political tool to find attacks against me, to find or to have me slip on what I said. I believe that even more during the meeting, given the attacks that were lobbied and the accusation from people who were perfectly fine with our finances before, that there was somehow illegal activity going on. And Mr. Kimball, given the fact that Earlier today, we were told by the chamber that in 2013, we engaged in an illegal loan. I know that you corrected that with them, but again, in an abundance of caution to make sure that people understand how this tax is being utilized, why we utilize this tax, and what the 2013 loan was for, I wanted to see if you could provide some additional information.
Sorry. Yeah, definitely. So, we've kind of talked about this sort of issue over the last few years. It's come up at a few Measure A town hall meetings. Back in, the prior to, I think it was prior to 2013, the council or the city had been using some of these retirement tax funds to pay for retiree health benefits and a little bit for the LAFD fire contract. Again, I don't think this was necessarily out of malicious intent. I just think that it was.
Oh, I know it was, but I'll let you continue.
Well, I think it was just, at the time, staff did not understand what, the proper use for the funds.
Oh, I'm sorry. When you said, I was referring to the chamber meeting.
Oh yeah, no, I meant the actions of paying those.
Oh yes, correct.
They were purposely misusing the funds. I think it was just a misunderstanding on how funds could be used. So when that was found out was around 2013. The city manager at the time, Don Penman, brought that to the attention of the city council. They said over the 5-year period, there was about $4.5 million that was spent on retiree health and basically on purposes that aren't allowed through the retiree health tax law.
Who determined this? You said, I'm sorry.
I think it was determined. The city manager at the time brought it forward, but it was determined by city attorneys and other. He was working in coordination with city attorneys at the time.
Okay.
So that being said, he brought back an item to council in 2013 saying these items should not have been paid by the retirement tax. They should have been paid by the general fund. So council at the time adopted a repayment agreement that was $4.5 million. That basically over the next, I think it was a 20 or 30 year repayment plan that the general fund would repay the retirement fund for those expenditures. To basically kind of write those expenditures at the time. So we're currently, repaying that at the, according to that repayment schedule, and sort of kind of making the retirement fund whole for those expenditures back prior to 2013. So
sorry if I may interject one more time. We made that agreement with ourselves, or who did we make it with?
Yeah, it was an agreement. Yeah, it was a resolution that was adopted that basically required the general fund to repay the retirement fund for those.
Understood. Sorry, please.
And most of our debt is with ourselves, unless you consider outstanding pension and healthcare obligations, but it's not really a debt per se, in the same way that these are. And so I do remember that this was brought forward to us in 2013. We wanted Mr. Penman to work pretty aggressively to find everything that had been done wrong by the previous recalled council. And this wasn't in an effort to address this with those members who had been recalled, but it was actually more and exclusively an effort to remedy these issues, to make sure that the city was following the best practices, the best guidelines that were known at the time. And so when Mr. Penman, and by the way, I know that when Councilmember Ballin was on the council prior to the recall, she had asked the city manager at the time, many a times, for additional information, which was never forthcoming. And so when we finally had a new city council in place, we were able to really parse through all the numbers and deduce what we needed to do to ensure the city's financial stability. We did all of this openly, and I don't recall if portions of this were discussed in closed session. Perhaps they were, perhaps they weren't, but I know for a fact that we had very open and candid discussions with the entire community about this. And again, this has never been a problem with any members of the community with whom I've spoken about it until there's an election this year. And then all of a sudden, questions that have already been answered have to be answered again. and it has somehow become a volatile issue for some people who were satisfied with the city's actions beforehand. And so I felt that this was worthwhile at least bringing to the council's attention so that it wouldn't be perceived, if I had mentioned this to anyone else outside of the meeting, that it was a Brown Act issue if it were related to policy. And I think that Mr. Kimball handled parts of this, or I should say the entirety in which he spoke, really well. And I believe that I gave all the accurate information too. But once again, we inherited a city that had a lot of challenges back in 2012. We did everything that we could to stabilize the city, and we are still always looking for the best solutions to make San Fernando whole and to ensure that we are satisfying all of our obligations. And so those are the comments that I wanted to make with respect to the meeting. I don't necessarily expect that it'll be the last meeting under the guise of seeking more information that is intended to be used for attacks, but so be it. But with regards to the two options that Mr. Kimball presented to us, and actually this did come up, why we have two options. And I presume that Mr. Kimball felt that it was prudent to provide two different scenarios since there are two potentially reasonable paths to accept. I didn't have any hand in drafting this agenda item. I didn't tell him that it had to be done a certain way or another. I believe that it's the product of him and staff working together. And again, to present information in a transparent manner. Between the two, I think that given the circumstances with COVID-19 and how it can impact homeowners and homeownership, I would like to see us to continue as we have done in years past to lower the rate. And one of the things that really informs my opinion on this is my 2013 conversation with Don Penman, the first time that we lowered this rate. And I asked him if this was the right thing to do, given how much debt we probably had, or not debt per se, but how high of an outstanding obligation we had. And he told me at the time that still being in the middle of a recession, it would probably be wise to consider economic relief for the public as best as we are able to provide that. And in addition to that, since we were asking the community to approve Measure A for the first time, it showed our desire and ability to make the cost of living as affordable as possible in our wonderful city. And so I had to give this a lot of thought over the weekend as to whether we should keep the existing rate or lower it, given that we are in a similar situation or a quasi-parallel situation now as we were in 2012. And given the fact that we will be presenting the public with an opportunity to consider an additional sales tax revenue, I do believe that the best course of action is what we did back in 2013 and lower the rate. And so having said that, I am happy to go to my colleagues for questions, comments, or further discussion, beginning with Councilmember Ballin.
We were in a really bad place in 2012, that's for sure. The city manager at the time chose to lie to the community and to two council members. That would be Councilmember Lopez and myself, and had us believe that the books were balanced when in fact we had our foot in bankruptcy. And we did, when the new council members came on board, Councilmember Gonzalez and the mayor and Jesse Avila, we asked that the city manager at the time, Don Penman, please uncover everything you can uncover.
Yep.
Look under every rock. We just
Yep.
wanted to correct everything that was wrong and do everything we could to get out of having our foot in bankruptcy, but at the same time, clean up all those deals and books and everything that they chose to do. And just like the sheriffs, every time it's campaign time, someone puts that rumor out that, well, we want the sheriffs in town so that they could use it as a campaign attack. And once again, they're using this property tax as we did something very underhanded when we actually said, let's clean up all the bookkeeping mess that was purposely done. And I have to say that Don Pammon and then, of course, Nick Kimball, our finance director, has done an outstanding, at the time he was our finance director, has done an outstanding job. And now we have Diego, who's just doing a great job for us as well. So I'm very grateful about where we're at. And I think it's very appropriate for us once again to go ahead and lower the property tax. We could truly use the money, but in light of what happened in the past, I think that that's what we should do. That's the right thing to do.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Thank you for clarifying the information. As you know, I'm new to all of this this process and understanding what had possibly have transpired in the past. So thank you for clarifying. My only comment is that I would like resolution 8024 with a 2.20 percentage. That's all. That's my only comment.
Thank you. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Nick, referencing everything that I guess the 2012 or 2013 council did or didn't do with the borrowing of the money, et cetera. You said that they may or may not have known that they were doing it, whether it was negligent or reckless or I don't know what. Do you know if we collected property taxes that we were not supposed to collect? Or is it that we just expended them in a way that we were not supposed to expend them?
Mr. Padilla, you seem to be nodding your head, and Mr. Kimball, you're on mute.
First, Mr. Nick, if you want to go first, you can go first. If not, I can try to field this.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Rich.
Yeah. So San Fernando, like a lot of other cities, was basically in the 90s to early 2000s, trying their best to interpret under the law at the time, or at least as the law was understood at the time, what things could be used for a pension tax, basically what an ad valorem override tax, which is what it's, I think, more precisely called, can and cannot be used for. San Fernando is one of about a dozen cities in California that approved similar taxes like this just after the end of World War II. A lot of these were approved by voter measure just following the war. It wasn't until a few line of cases, one being Carmen v. Alvord and another called involving Huntington Beach, where the courts slowly started to define what the limits of what you could spend the money on were. And San Fernando, like a lot of other cities, came to find out that certain medical or pension benefits that were not part of the original authorization from the 1940s, essentially part of CalPERS, could not use the money to pay for those purposes. In other words, if it wanted to pay for those purposes, it would have to essentially do a different sort of ballot measure. In fact, it couldn't even do an ad valorem tax measure because Prop 13 prevents that going forward. Our tax in many ways is a grandfather tax. It's a type of animal that couldn't be approved today because of the existence of Prop 13. But we are one of a handful of cities who have this benefit. So what did happen eventually is that a lot of cities came to understand what the limits of what they could and couldn't spend on. The tax is calculated by a specific formula. So it isn't the case that anybody would have paid at any given time more than what the formula prescribed. It's just on the back end, cities were using the money for purposes that they couldn't legitimately use them for, according to the courts. And as indicated in the prior discussion, essentially that was rectified when this new council came on board in 2013 or not long thereafter, so that ship could be righted. And the city essentially is paying back the CalPERS fund from general fund revenues, which is really the only way some of these supplemental benefits can be paid going forward, because there is no dedicated funding source for them that's been approved. So
Okay.
I think it's a little incorrect to say that there was like malfeasance or anything. I think a lot of people are trying to interpret evolving case law, and that's what happened.
Okay, and so could you enumerate very quickly then for clarity what it is that these courts have said that we can spend the property tax on and what San Fernando was spending that was not okay? So maybe you're in memory, Nick, I don't know, but.
Nick, do you want to field that or do you want me to?
You can start, Rich. And then...
Whoever can best answer.
So the original authorization of this tax was to pay for a CalPERS program. So the city is part of CalPERS, like pretty much every city in the state of California. So that is considered a pre-existing obligation. And one of the resolutions of Prop 13 and the case law that followed Prop 13 and Prop 218 was that these pre-existing obligations under pensions could be grandfathered in. Cities can continue to collect these taxes because they are tied to financial obligations that have to do with pension obligations. So to the extent that the city is providing a CalPERS related pension benefit, expending money on that is perfectly acceptable. As long as it is a CalPERS program related expenditure, that is fine. What a lot of cities were doing, I can speak of one anecdotally, they were trying to add on supplemental pension benefits. There's one product out there called PARS, which is essentially mimics CalPERS, but it's kind of like an add-on. And some cities were using pension tax revenues to pay for this PARS add-on. Well, PARS is a completely different set of laws. It accomplishes the same thing, but it's a creation of a different set of laws outside of CalPERS. So PARS is an example of a pension program that could no longer be funded through tax override measures like this.
Okay, so Nick, could you comment on what they spent it on or what was spent and how much we're paying back?
Yes. So, and again, this was a little before my time, so I'm going a lot on what the record kind of shows through.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too.
Yeah. So what the funds were spent on that were deemed ineligible expenditures were primarily so they were paying the retiree health. So the retiree health costs. So every year we have to pay the health premiums for our retirees. So that is also a CalPERS, we offer retiree health through CalPERS. So it's a CalPERS program, but it's not a CalPERS pension program. So that was one of the things that that was probably the most significant piece that the money was spent on each year for that 5-year period or so was the health that was overturned. And the other piece was a portion of the LA fire contract was being funded through that because the idea was that although we're paying a contract to City of LA, a portion of that contract goes to pay City of LA firefighters pension costs. So I think that was the idea behind paying part of the LA.
So it seems like they're trying to make some kind of tangential connection at least.
Oh,
right?
yeah, totally. Okay. I mean, it was all. I mean, I think it was all related to retirement benefits. It was just a wider, as Mr. Padilla had just enumerated. It was sort of a wider interpretation that was later more narrowed, made a little more narrow through some court actions. So, and that total came to about $4.5 million, and that's what the loan amount was, and that was over about a 5-year period. So you're looking about $800,000 or $900,000 a year. 5-year period, and that's the amount. That's the repayment that was approved by City Council, where the general fund needs to repay the retirement fund.
Retirement fund, right? Okay, and then just really briefly again, the arrangement as to why we're paying it back. It's because the City Council passed a resolution saying, "Hey, we need to pay this back," or is there any kind of other interest that's making us pay it back, I guess?
So we are legally obligated to pay it back because it was an expenditure that had to be paid out of general funds. So that's the driving impetus for that.
But there's probably no due date though, right? It's just that we have to pay it back, but by when?
Well, I don't know what the period is on that. I think we've actually already completed the payback, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
No, it was over. It was a 30-year. It's a 30-year repayment.
30-year, yeah.
So you're right that
there spending of 5 years, we're spending 30 years to pay it off.
Yeah, I mean the idea. So it was really kind of a function of a financial decision at that point. you know, like buying your house. It's just a pretty substantial
it.
amount that the city just didn't have the cash to pay, to be honest.
Got
And
it.
we still don't necessarily have the cash to make it right, you know, right now.
Okay, so every time the budget session comes up and we see the retirement fund repayment, that's actually discretionary towards you, Nick? Like you decide this, you know, we can pay this much, or how are we deciding that number, I guess?
So the resolution that was passed in 2013 when the loan approved, it also had a debt service schedule. So there's actually a debt schedule that has a principal and interest payment each year. So I think the principal comes out to 170.
So if we're in a financial emergency and we need to look at our debt payments, is it conceivable that city council could create a new debt schedule and
Sure.
and rearrange how much we're paying every year to the retirement fund, for instance?
Yes.
Okay, good to know. I did not know that. Okay, I want to go on record as well with my council members that I think we should be lowering the property tax. I think just for the same reasons that I don't support the higher sales tax, I think in a recession, we need to give as much discretionary income to homeowners and renters as possible. I think at some future point, we may need to raise the property tax, but I do not think that time is now. I wish we could actually lower it more, but so be it. So I think it will ultimately end up having a stimulative effect for our residents here in San Fernando. And so although I realize we have so many of these pension obligations that are unfunded, and you know, we could be making these extra payments. I think you know, we just don't have the cash for it. So I think right now we have to look out for the homeowners and residents first. And so I'll go ahead and support lowering the rates. So with that,
oh, sorry, I accidentally interrupted you. Go ahead.
no, I'll say with that, I'll yield my time, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And with the lower rate, it's important to remember we're making our payments on time. So it's not as though by having this lower rate that we are falling behind schedule per se. We are consistent with having met our obligations, and it just means that we aren't paying them off early in this particular respect. And just to echo a little bit more Councilmember Ballin's questions, or comments rather, I remember being in Don Penman's office and asking him if we've found everything that could ever be discoverable so that we knew that we did the best investigative work to really correct the city's direction. And he said something to the effect of, you know, there are so many layers to the onion. Who knows how many we've peeled back? We've done a lot, but there could always be more that as hard as we try to find, we wouldn't know where to start looking. And so we did whatever was possible at that time. All five of us working really closely on the council, people who wouldn't necessarily align us all today as cordial colleagues, all thought at the time that we worked really well together on this very specific issue. And really the part that frustrates me perhaps most about it is that some of the criticism that came today is from people and effectively allies of Ashkenazi development who have really lauded our financial decisions in the past when their allies have been strong on the council. And the only thing that has changed is that they don't feel that there's a lobbyist on the council backing them. No policy decision has changed since they were supportive of these measures back in 2013. And so that's the part that frustrates me, because every single thing we've done has been in the name of integrity and bettering the city. So that concludes my comments. It seems that there is agreement to go with the lower rate, and I want to make sure that I have the correct resolution number. So the lower rate is okay. 1 second. So I would like to move to approve item number 7.
Excuse me, Mayor, did you call on Councilmember Mendoza? I don't remember. He did? Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, she also concurred that she supported the lower rate.
Okay, thank you.
And so I would like to move, or I will move to approve item number 7 per staff's recommendation and utilizing the lower rate as presented in the agenda by staff for this year's tax. Is there a second?
I'll
Second,
second.
Second by Ballin, I think was first. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Mendoza,
I'll second.
Second by Ballin, I think was first. Can I have a roll? Someone is streaming or has the stream on.
should I'll go on.
Thank
but
you.
that'll be a repeat of everything we're saying. Okay, so Councilmember Mendoza,
Absolutely, yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez is absent, Councilmember Ballin,
yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco,
Yes.
Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. We are now at item number 8. This came up during our budget discussion when I indicated that when a couple of us indicated that the funds that we normally use to provide buses should go to infrastructure, and it was indicated that some of that could potentially be used for sidewalks. And so Mr. Kimball was able to do some research on that, and we now have an update regarding the sidewalk repair efforts within the city and discussion of the use of Proposition A transit funds during fiscal year 2020 through 2021. Mr. Kimball?
Yes, and Mr. Our new Public Works Director, Mr. Matt Baumgartner, will be giving this presentation.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Just allow me a minute. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm not sure if anybody can anybody see my presentation?
Nope.
Okay.
No, that must be fantastic.
Let me try again to let you. All right, what? Can you try it again, Matt?
I think Matt's frozen.
No, I
Yeah.
see the smile. There we go.
Okay.
See that now? Okay, yes, thank you. I just wanted to give you a brief update on our effort on sidewalk repairs going back to 2016. Essentially, we go about doing repairs in the city through 2 different modes, kind of a responsive mode done by our public works city staff. We maintain 80 miles of sidewalks in the cities, and we have a small budget around $19,000 for targeted repairs. And those are done on small damaged sections throughout the city as trees might lift up small sections of sidewalk panels, or cracking issues develop over time as we are able to get to them and respond to complaints from the city. We are able to do a small amount of repairs. The second mode that we look at is more of a plan mode through our outside contractors. As we do street projects during the year, we have sidewalks and curb ramps that are repaired during these projects. And you're able to get more done because you have larger crews that are mobilized out there, dedicated to this work while the street is closed off. So it allows you to get a little bit more done, as well as having a larger funding source to be able to go after that. On an annual basis, prior to this year, we'd probably looking at spending about $150K on average to do that work. This table here shows you the work that we do through both city staff and our street contractors going back to fiscal year 2016. So you can see over time we've been increasing, and this year the asterisk next to fiscal year 2021 represents the Glen Oaks project, quite a bit of concrete work done along there, as well as a few other street resurfacing projects that we will be working on this year. On an annual basis, we're repairing about 0.7 miles of sidewalks each year, 5 foot in width, with about, as I was saying earlier, about 150,000 spent each year, but this year probably looking closer to about $250,000. Just getting a little background on Proposition A funding. The half-cent tax, sales tax measure was passed in 1980, and 25% of that is returned back to the cities on a per capita basis, and it must be used to benefit public transit. 12,500 is allocated to city council, and each council member can direct an expenditure of 2,500. Now, historically, this has been used for providing buses to our community, seniors, schools for special events, field trips, and I think we've referred to these as bus funds. As Mayor Fajardo was referencing, back in 2015, when June 15th of 2020, the proposed budget was approved, and during that time there was discussion and a motion was made, including reallocating part or all of a council member's funds towards sidewalk repairs. And I believe the impetus behind that is with COVID, it might not be, we might not be able to use as many of these bus funds since there wouldn't be these special events to attend. So there was some discussion about maybe being able to reallocate part or all of your funds towards sidewalk repairs. So staff went and did a little bit of research and talking with Metro staff. The Proposition A funds can only be used for improvements within 25 feet of a bus stop. So listing them here: sidewalks, shelters, benches, bus pads, or trash receptacles are the intended improvements that can be made within 25 feet of a bus stop, and that's measured from the sign itself. So that's how they are able to designate that. There are 75 bus and trolley stops in the city. And, you know, in looking at them myself over the last week, I would say that they are in general, they're in satisfactory condition. What I did notice that a few of the stops are sign-only locations, probably a handful, maybe up to 5, where there's no bench or shelter, essentially just a sign there on the sidewalk. And most of our stops do not have shelters. They are bench-only locations. And I just want to provide you know what these look like around the city, but this is the standard bus stop without shelter using our San Fernando benches. We also have the metal benches that you see at trolley stops, as well as the trash receptacles near the bench. And this is an example of a bus stop that's a sign-only location. And as I was saying, I believe we have maybe around 5 of these out of the 70 that are sign-only. Essentially, I just wanted to give you that background, and if there's any questions, open them up to you now.
Thank you. I would like to start. Of the handful of items that you think might need repair, what would you anticipate the cost to be?
I mean, I think if we were to, I will say this: bus shelters are kind of out of the question because they are. Last time we put some in, they were upwards of $10,000 a location, so that might be not really being able to use our funds very effectively. Benches are more around, you know, at least the last time these were put in. So I'm just quoting numbers from a couple of years ago. When we put in benches for the trolley stops, they were around $1,200, those metal benches. So you might be able to put in some benches at some of the sign-only locations. But as far as creating a shelter, I think we would probably need to make that a larger capital project.
Okay. And so how would you recommend then that the council use these funds? I mean, assuming that they all go towards a singular cause.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if we had five locations where you put benches, that's around $6,000. So that could be one potential way of going about it. Being able to give some ability for residents while they're waiting for the bus to be able to sit rather than just congregate and stand there while they're waiting for the bus. That might be the best way to use a small amount of funds. You know, I haven't looked at every last stop. There might be a few sidewalk improvements we can make just very localized that wouldn't cost us very much money. I think I said in the staff report that 2,500 would, depending on the amount of repairs that were necessary, could help you repair some panels around 2 bus stops. So if there were 1 or 2 bus stops, we could use them for some small panel repair. I didn't notice any major need for that. There may have been a few locations where there's some slight lifting going on, so we could put some effort in there. But I believe, since we're not talking about a very large amount of money, I think these would be the best ways of kind of doing some targeted repairs and use for the funds, or continuing to hold them aside and wait for the opportunity to use them for busing. I can't really see any other opportunities for relatively small amount of funds.
Okay, well, my goal is for us to use the funds if and where they are needed, not to try to desperately look for ways to use it on something infrastructure related. So if you have something where you definitively feel that this is a benefit, this should be done, this is a helpful use for it, then that is what I would want to know. But if you feel that it's doing it just to say we did it, I don't see that as a worthwhile use of the funds. So I'm glad that we looked into this, though, because I have had concerns in the past that that if this were usable for sidewalks and it was being used for something else, that we weren't using our money in the best way possible. So I appreciate you looking into this. And then I will, at least on my end, I will wait to see if you have any further recommendations down the road. Councilmember Ballin?
Actually, I'm going to allocate the $2,500 to Matt to make a decision where it could best be used, whether it's a specific location that a bench would work very well for our community, especially our seniors or those with special needs. Whatever he chooses or however he chooses to use that money that falls within the criteria, I am gladly give it to him.
Thank you. No, I feel the same. I appreciate that. Councilmember Mendoza?
Yeah. Nick, do we have a bench over there at Las Palmas Park for the trolley? Do you know? I don't think there's one.
Yeah, I'd have to defer to Matt on that, but I'm sure he hasn't memorized. I want to put him on the spot. He probably hasn't memorized.
Poor Matt.
Yeah, but
what a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would like to I allocate some funds for that, and then I'll keep the rest maybe to supplement council member balance, and just in case of an emergency or that the residents or any of the organizations may need a bus, then I'd like to save some for that. But can we just kind of leave it open-ended that if you need it, you can contact us and let us know? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, you know what we can do is maybe Matt can compile a number of pictures at the places that there is not currently a bench. It sounded like there weren't that many, and we can sort of send that around. Currently, so the funds are actually appropriated for each council member. So if it sounds like, again, Matt did a great job doing the research, especially on the sidewalks. It sounds like what we can do is just kind of circulate to council members that the areas where there is not a bus, there is not a bench, or there's pretty significant sidewalk repair that needs to be done. Maybe we'll just circulate that around with some pictures, the locations and pictures. And if any council member does want to put their funds toward that, you can just let us know administratively. And since the funds are already appropriated, we can put it toward, we can execute that pretty quickly.
Okay. Yeah, because I also think they should be cost-effective projects, and I know if you do it in a larger scale, it's more cost-effective for us. But I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Yes, I think Nick having that list and photos circulate is probably a good idea. I feel like maybe this quote unquote earmark is a little bit more important since they're coming from funds that we traditionally earmark. But I will definitely consider a bench where there's no bench, I'm even, I mean, my gears are turning here. I'm even interested in maybe figuring out a way to fundraise, to know that these shades only really cost 10,000. I know it's a lot, but I think like if we all, I don't know, I want to feel like maybe I can find a way to fundraise that, but that's another question. Yeah, so if we could just find ways to identify certain locations, for instance, I would probably like to target Glen Oaks or Maclay, right, or San Fernando Road, one of the high traffic areas. I don't know how many people take certain buses, but I think I know what some of the more trafficked and popular ones are. But otherwise, yeah, I think I'm all for it. Just one quick question: do these funds carry over? Like if next year, you know, we have $5,000 and now we can do 4 stops, or is this something that's allocated every year, like a use it or lose it type of thing?
So typically the way we allocate them, so they're all, you know, when we receive Prop A funds on a per capita basis. So basically, you know, most of them are used to pay for our trolley system and our dial-a-ride system. And then there's, you know, the small amount that's used to pay for, bus shelters, that type of thing. So to the extent that any money is not spent in the current year, it just stays, it goes back to the fund balance for our Prop A fund and then can get reallocated the next year. That was one of the things that I was going to actually suggest. If there's a desire to, you know, sort of hold on to these funds for the year and then wait till next year, and we could reappropriate them again next year and have, you know, twice as much money to go toward a specific project, or a bus shelter project for $24,000 instead of $12,000. You know, that's something that we could also do as well.
That's interesting. Very good to know. And the 2,500 number each, that's a number that the measure decides, or who came up with that number?
No, that's a council policy council came up with a few years ago, based on prior practice.
Interesting. Okay. So if next year we decided that every council member should have $10,000 for transportation, we would just pass something and decide that? There's no like Prop A contingencies or anything like that?
Yeah, correct. You could potentially do that. The only thing is, you know, we can go through the Prop A, but you know, we get basically 300,000, and if we a year, I'm using round numbers. So say we get about 300,000 a year, we use about 275, 280,000 to pay for our contractor for the dial-a-ride, and so that's kind of the parameter that sort of
got it. Okay, understood. All right, yeah, just having some options to decide, I think, is the best way forward. So thank you. I yield.
Thank you. I'm glad that we did reduce the amount, though. I still think that this should just all go towards citywide transportation, citywide walkability, etc. But this is a good step in the right direction. Mr. Kimball, do you need any form of vote right now, or do you believe that you have sufficient direction?
I think we have sufficient direction, and Mr. Baumgartner will work on a memo and some pictures that we can circulate in the next few weeks to get feedback.
Much appreciated. Thank you so much. We are moving right along. Item number 9, this is a discussion and consideration to approve a letter condemning administrative policies on U.S. immigration and customs enforcement detention facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just real quick, we got direction during our last the last update from the COVID response update from council to bring back a letter draft and bring back a letter. So in accordance with that, we are bringing this back. If there are any edits that council would like to see on the letter, which is attached and it's included in page 153 of your agenda packet, please sort of bring those up now. And then at the end, we would just like to know, we'd like to finalize the letter, and then any council member that would like to include their signature on this, you know, just give us that direction as well.
Thank you. Beginning, and I forgot which council member first discussed this, if it was Ballin or Mendoza. It was Mendoza. Thank you, Mendoza. If you know.
Councilmember Ballin.
Oh, Councilmember Ballin, if you would like to start on this, and then we'll go to Mendoza after Ballin. You're on mute, Councilmember Ballin.
I read the letter and there's some minor tweaks I would like to work out with Nick. And I think maybe the other council members might have some tweaks, and maybe once he sends it around and finalized, then we could all make a decision whether we're going to sign off on it or not. But the tweaks are very minor. I like the content of the letter. I just want to change a couple of words.
So in that sense, or in that respect, then, would we still pass this agenda item as is, but giving the city manager the authority to make changes?
Yes, that's what I'm
Okay.
looking for.
That works.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Well, I read the letter and it seems clear. Whatever tweaks they come up with, then we'll see it again before it goes out. And I'm willing to sign off on it. I think it's important for to go out. It's, we need to keep the children with their families and prevent any emotional and psychological damage that is occurring. And I'd just like for us to move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you to Ballin and Mendoza for bringing this up. Immigration issues are very important to me as a first generation Latino. My wife practices immigration law. We see the unfortunate and heartbreaking impact of Donald Trump's policies every day in our practice. And I can't stress enough how important it is to hold the next administration accountable and to make the changes that we're all looking to make as well. Thank you for bringing this up, and I'll definitely sign it away.
Thank you. I concur with my colleagues on this, and therefore, Councilmember Ballin, I believe you wanted to make the motion, and it was to approve this item, but to allow the city manager to make changes before signing, correct?
Correct.
Great. So I will, Councilmember Mendoza, did you care to second this? You have to speak. Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please, Ms. Fritz.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez is absent. Councilmember Ballin.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Yes.
And Mayor Fajardo.
I am a yes. The motion carries. We are at our final item, which is a discussion and direction, discussion and direction regarding existing city council ad hoc committee assignments. Mr. Kimball.
Yes, real quick. We wanted to bring back a listing of the ad hoc committees, because I believe there are a few that could be dissolved as they've sort of run their course, and as well as there may be some reorganization of some of the meetings, some of the committees. So we currently have 20 committees. Of those, there are 10 that are recommended to be dissolved, because the purpose of those ad hoc committees original stated purpose has been met. Those are in your agenda packet. All of those are recommended to be dissolved, have in red under the scope, recommend dissolving. So again, this is just brought back for city council review. We typically review these periodically throughout the year, and we'll probably review again during council reorg in December. But we wanted to bring this back now and offer the opportunity to make any necessary adjustments now, and also dissolve some ad hocs that may no longer be relevant.
Thank you. I will start with this item. I know that number 4, which is the Wild Horse Foundation, this was originally agreed upon that it would dissolve automatically on October 31st of this year. But given the fact that I'm not sure when we're going to be having big social programs there, I think that we can go ahead and dissolve number 4 in addition to the ones that you recommended. And I don't know if I'm missing this, but there was a tree one. I see the green one. But there we go. Street and park. Oh, there we go. Parkway trees. I had always conceptualized that these would have been one with the green. They overlap so much. And given the fact that Councilmember Gonzalez is retiring, I would like to merge number 13, which is the street and parkway tree, with number 9, the green cities, and potentially call it green cities and trees, and to have it composed of me and Council or Vice Mayor Pacheco. And then with regards to the mural program, I was not aware that Councilmember Mendoza was going to be recommending a mural today, but I had wanted to discuss potentially using my community investment funds for a mural. This is all completely coincidental. And I was going to ask if I could sit on that ad hoc committee with her, since I have a surplus of funds available since my event did not go through this year. And since Councilmember Gonzalez will be retiring. So my only other recommendation would be to place me on the mural program with the mural program ad hoc committee with Councilmember Mendoza, so that we may use some of my discretionary funds towards creating the women's suffrage mural. And so again, just to clarify, dissolving number 4 altogether, and combining numbers 10 and 13 to have the green city and trees composed of me and Vice Mayor Pacheco, and then to change the membership or the seats on the mural program ad hoc to consist of Councilmember Mendoza and me. So those are my comments and feedback on this. Councilmember Ballin?
I'm very fine with your recommendations, and I'm not sure what to do here with the social media or those ad hocs that I'm participating in. More the social media, it's just, oh my God, it's mushrooming, right, Nick? It's like at this moment in time, we have no choice but to, suddenly we're on Zoom. We never thought we would have these meetings on Zoom. So I think the timing isn't right for us to prepare a social media policy. And I need to check with Nick and see, what are your thoughts on that? I think if we wait maybe till the end of the year, the first of the year, and I'd also like to check with the Vice Mayor for his thoughts as well. So Nick?
Yeah, I agree. We're sort of in an environment where we're actually using social media more than we ever have.
Right.
And it's one of our primary ways to get information out to a lot of community members. So, you know, and also, you know, part of what the original thought on the social media policy was that, you know, you post on social media, but maybe not, you know, there's a lot of trolls and a lot of other things. People can say whatever they want on social media. So typically you don't want to engage, you know, people like that. However, right now there's a lot of people that are asking very useful questions on social media, and we're trying to engage them, you know, to give them responses. So I do agree that it's probably because of the changing environment right now and the way that we're using social media and relying on social media. It may be worth kind of holding off so we can have some lessons learned before developing a strict policy.
And Vice Mayor, I know that the council member also wanted you to offer feedback as well.
On the particular ad hoc, or
whether it's necessary to keep intact or whether dissolving it for the time being would be sufficient or acceptable.
Well, I think, like Nick said, we are using social media a lot more. However, I think maybe what we have on paper or what we're going by, maybe we're flying by the seat of our pants, I don't know, but I think it's working okay for now. Maybe we should meet one more time and then kind of like reassess how everything's going through COVID.
Okay.
And see how, you know, see where we stand from there. Maybe we'll get Julie to join us. I know she works with the social media a lot, right? So
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, and I'd like Julia to participate in that meeting as well as Cynthia. I think they all have their hands in social media, and we need to make a decision based on everyone's input. And I even think we need Tim in that meeting. It's a big item.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, yeah, whoever has insight or like uses it for sure. Let's get them in there. So,
Okay.
so yeah.
Okay, so do you feel that we need to include as part of the motion for the, and I don't know if this is allowed, but for the committee to self-dissolve if deemed necessary after the first, or your next meeting, or
No,
something where you'd like to-
I'd like us to come back and report,
Okay.
give an update. What do you think, Hector?
Yeah, I mean, either way, we could adjourn it at the end of the meeting if you want, or we can just wait until we present to the council. That's fine
Sounds
too.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's wait for the presentation.
Okay.
Councilmember Mendoza?
I'm fine with the changes. I just don't know in regards, and I don't mind being on the mural ad hoc committee with you, Mayor. I just not sure. We need to ask Councilmember Gonzalez, because we've only met once actually, but I don't know if you need to ask him or not.
In terms of whether we're required to, the answer is no. It's almost like the League of Cities item at the last meeting. I had to step away and I wasn't able to discuss that one particular item, and the council made changes, and it's pretty parallel to this in terms of moving forward, especially when I have resources to actually contribute to a mural, and that's always been one of the biggest hindrances.
Okay, then I'm fine, whatever's decided. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Sure. I guess I'll take one each in turn if that's okay. Totally okay with the minimum wage dissolving. I do understand that the state's kind of stepping in there. I think well, it would be nice to have perhaps Mr. Gonzalez can recommend, or one of the other council members could jump in on the street and parkway trees. I think the flight path changes obviously is probably okay to dissolve. And what else did I have here? Oh, and I'm happy to replace Mr. Gonzalez on Wild Horse. Although it's established, I think they might still need some liaisoning. They might, as they get up and going once COVID, is over, hopefully. I think they might still need a little bit of liaisoning. So I think we can probably keep that one open at least until they're, operational and off the ground. And obviously commercial cannabis, we can dissolve. Measure M has been passed. And what's this last one here? And dissolving pension and retirement health program review. I mean, I guess I don't really have an opinion on that, but yeah, besides those,
if my list is correct, so it sounded like the one that you would like to keep intact is the Wild Horse Foundation, and that you correct?
Yeah. Are your changes the red type? Those are your recommendations, or
those are Mr. Kimball's, not mine?
Mr. Kimball. Oh, right. Okay, Mr. Kimball's. Okay. As far as census, Mr. Kimball, there's really nothing else we need to do after the census is done. I mean, there's no like reporting or hey, how'd that go? It's pretty much out of our hands.
Yeah, not from the ad hoc's perspective.
Okay.
I mean, we'll still they're still useful. I mean, I still want to bounce ideas for the next 2 months, but after after the reporting period stops, we basically don't have no more activity. We can still report back, as to what our numbers were, but there won't be any more activity.
And as far as the CBDG, there's even if there's like another stimulus package, there's really no other need for this committee. I guess we could just reform it again if more funds.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think if there were another round, we would want a new ad hoc if that were what the council.
Understood. Okay. All righty.
So with all those comments made, then I will move to approve item number 10 per staff's recommendations with the following changes: that the Wild Horse Children's Foundation, regarding the use of Pioneer Park, that ad hoc committee stays intact through December 31st, 2021, consisting of Vice Mayor Pacheco and me, and that the Green City Ad Hoc Committee and Street and Parkway Tree Committee are combined to be a Green City and Trees Committee consisting of Councilmember Pacheco and me, and that the Mural Ad Hoc Committee is changed to consist of Councilmember Mendoza of me. And that is the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call, please, Ms. Fritz.
Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez is absent. Councilmember Valen.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Aye.
Mayor Fajardo.
Yes, the motion carries. We are now, one second, scrolling back. We are now at, I believe, staff communication. Yes, we are, and the including commission updates. Mr. Kimball?
Yes, the City Clerk, Ms. Fritz, has the first staff update.
Yes. Thank you, City Manager and Mr. Mayor and City Council members. I have just a few updates in regards to some of the activities happening in the elections. The nomination period is officially over. We are not accepting any more applicants, and it's as of August 12th at 5 p.m. The county performed a alphabetical drawing in order to place the candidates on the ballot. And I have that, I believe I sent that over, or I'm sorry, City Manager must have, I believe City Manager, did you send that over this morning? It was an alphabet drawing for the candidates to appear on the ballot.
I did not.
You did not. Okay.
I sent it to you though.
We'll send it in the
I sent
morning.
it to you last Thursday.
Okay, I will forward that information to council first thing in the morning. And we have a final list of qualified candidates that I know was forwarded.
Yes, it was.
I got them. Mm-hmm.
Okay. As far as the election formatting titles, I know we spoke at our last city council meeting, and the direction was to request that the county format the ballot, the contests into one that says general municipal election with the 2 4-year terms listed, and a second category would be for special municipal election for the 2-year unexpired term. And the county confirmed that is more than acceptable, and they're willing to accommodate the printing on the ballot for that. So that's a confirmation. And our tax measure was assigned alphabet SF. So it was our first choice. We were lucky enough to get that. So our tax measure is measure SF. The documents have been forwarded to the county. And finally, the county has still not gotten back to us with regard to their county health order and clarification on, or policy on, guidelines, I should say, regarding the door-to-door solicitations.
Just to clarify, they have gotten back to us and they said that they're not allowed right now, but they're working on that door-to-door solicitation for campaign activity is not allowed, but they're working on guidelines to potentially allow them.
Okay, and that is all that I have at the moment, unless there are any questions that members of the city council has of me.
Not at this time, Ms. Fritz. Thank you though for your updates. Mr. Kimball?
Mr. Howe, we'll give, and then I see Mr. Baumgartner still on the line. So Mr. Howe followed by Matt, and then Chief Viro if they have any, if he's got any.
Mayor Fajardo and council members, just one quick update. Last week, the Community Development Department released a request for proposals for a planning consultant to assist the city with its 6th cycle housing element update to the general plan. So we're looking for a planning consultant to help us with that plan for basically years 2021 through 2029 to meet our RENA allocation. And proposals are due back in about a month. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Baumgartner, you have any staff updates? You're on mute if you're trying to, oh, there you go.
Yeah, just very quickly, I was going to mention that we have 20 permits that have been issued under the outdoor service permit program. And let's see, just a quick breakdown, 8 of those being restaurants, 7 are hair salons or barbershops. We have 2 gym fitness centers and 3 places of worship. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
And just kind of keep you up to date as well on the PD side of it. We restarted our Park Patrol program just for Saturdays and Sundays, utilizing our Reserve Officer Division. And hopefully we can make a little bit of an impact in educating people at the parks when they're using the fields and against the county health order. So we're making a little bit of headway, but hopefully in the future, as we continue at this program, we'll keep everybody informed and aware of the activities that are allowed and not allowed in the parks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And just real quickly from my end, just a reminder that cooling centers, Las Palmas will be open for the remainder of the week as a Rex cooling center. And also I want to remind everyone to sign up for Alert San Fernando. That's our new quote unquote Nixle, if you will, where we push out messages, voicemails, and very important messages to the community. So you can just go to sfcity.org. And then there's a banner on the homepage to sign up for Alert San Fernando, but we're really trying to push that for getting information out. That especially is helpful for people that may not have cell phones. If you sign up your landline, you'll get a message whenever we send out a message. And then just real quick, Glen Oaks will have some pretty significant traffic slowdowns this week. We're installing some of those traffic signals along Glen Oaks. So anyone that may need to go that way that uses Glen Oaks may want to avoid the area this week, just because we expect there to be some pretty significant delays as the new traffic signals are installed along that corridor. And that's all staff has for tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Howe?
Apologies. I'll mention one more announcement. Last week, with the reopening of City Hall, we actually restarted what we're calling a census desk. The county previously had a program, a questionnaire assistance kiosk, and that program got suspended because of COVID-19. We've gone ahead and just basically implemented our own individual program. So we have a computer desktop at City Hall where folks during open City Hall hours can come in and complete their census.
Thank you.
And real quick before we finalize, I just wanted to ask that City Council close tonight in honor of Patsy Orozco's mother, who passed away a few weeks ago. Patsy's been an employee in Public Works for 20 plus years. She's been with the city for a long time, and her mom passed away. Her mom's name is Martha Sanchez de Amaya. So I would request that we close in her honor.
Great, and I apologize that we didn't do this at the last meeting. Mr. Kimball sent me an email, but I hadn't seen it until I did not see it until the following day. We are now at general council comments. Councilmember Ballin, followed by Mendoza.
Well, I spent the day on Zoom with attending MWD meetings, various meetings. A couple of things, and I know that either Matt or Nick are going to follow up. They're working on a program for a toilet rebate for apartment buildings or multifamily dwellings older than 1995. And that's coming, I think, more toward the end of the year, but I want to make sure that we jump on it, Nick. And what was the other thing? My goodness, I wrote it down. We're tomorrow again, it's another long day of meetings with Metropolitan on Zoom, and we are going to select a search firm to hire a general manager. And it's been a very, very long process. And when you have, there's 5 of us, 5 council members, but on the MWD board, there's 38 board members. And it can be a bit of a challenge to come to agreement sometimes. Anyway, with that, oh, I know the other thing that they're looking at, Nick, is landscaping classes online for residents. So please contact Bill and follow up on that. There's no rush because this is all more toward the end of the year, but that's my update. It's just these meetings with MWD. My God, to be on there from 9 o'clock to almost 4 o'clock today, that was a long day for me. But thank you, staff, for doing a great job. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Councilmember Mendoza.
Yes, I just want to say that I've been participating in the weekly teleconferences from the Los Angeles County. And I do have a contact person that I, whenever I have any questions, that I'll email him or he'll call me back. And his name is Jason Dawson. He's been very good and very prompt in his responses. I've also participated in the virtual NALEO conference. Joe Biden was one of the presenters there, and I'm still listening to some of the topics that they had. I'm not finished all of them, but I'm eager to learn more than I've been doing these past couple of months. And thank you, Nick, regarding the Amaya family. My condolences go out to them. They're actually my neighbors down, a couple of houses down. So my condolences on the loss of their mother. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for a great meeting. Staff for all the hard work as always. Briefly, my heart goes out to anyone affected by the wildfires. It's that time of year again. And the hurricanes on the East Coast as well are going to be probably pretty severe. Again, I want to encourage everybody to vote early if you can, the day you get your ballot. And we are going to do our research and figure out what exactly is the best way to vote, because it just seems like now even the mail is, under attack. So I definitely want to encourage residents to reach out to Luz Rivas, as her representative mentioned today, in regards to anything EDD related. I think I know a lot of people have had trouble filing unemployment and so forth. And so please use her as a resource. She is there for it. I all in all, it's just another week dealing with the pandemic, and I feel like we're slowly making our way through. So I'm very happy that our council and our staffers, we're really trying hard to weather this storm, so to speak. So with that, I will close my comments and see everybody in a couple weeks.
Thank you. Councilman or Vice Mayor Pacheco and I had the opportunity to meet at the Green Ad Hoc Committee. I was very happy to see that a notice we received from the city regarding the census did not utilize a plastic bag, which has been one of our previous requests, that we eliminate the use of these single-use plastic bags. And I would love for the city manager to be able to bring that forward, so we have more of a formal city policy versus an ad hoc recommendation that went in the right direction. We also are going to be getting additional information on how many trees we planted these last number of years, including how many more we would like to do in the future years. And we also discussed our previous ban on flavored tobacco, or the sale of flavored tobacco, and whether it is reasonable to still bring that forward, given that outreach efforts are a little bit different in light of COVID. And we also discussed a broader and long-term goal of asking restaurants to have to use biodegradable materials, such as forks, spoons, knives, plates, cups, etc., for their customers. So we had a discussion on that. And then again, my apologies and my condolences more so to the Orozco family. We will be closing in the name of Martha Sanchez de Amayo, as well as the stepfather of Long Beach Mayor Robert Garcia, Greg O'Donnell, who also passed away of COVID-19 complications, in addition to his mother 2 weeks prior to that. And I'd just once again like to thank staff for all the great work that they've done, for making this meeting thorough and seamless. As some of you can see, I'm in council chambers again. I came here to do some work. And I'll be honest with you, I just fell in love once again with being in council chambers and all the nostalgia that I brought of all the community engagement, whether it was here to celebrate what we've done or here to speak against it. I loved every moment of it, and I'm looking forward to continuing that tradition when the social health guidelines allow us to. And so I couldn't pull myself apart from this room. And so that's why I'm here right now. And perhaps I will continue future city council meetings as a presiding officer from this room. And so thank you all once again. And I will move to adjourn in the names of Ms. De Amayo and Mr. O'Donnell. Do I have a second?
And Mr. Mayor, just a reminder that due to the Memorial Day holiday, our next meeting is on Tuesday, September 8th.
Thank you. Do I have a second to the motion to adjourn?
Second.
I think I heard Ballin first. I will proceed with the roll. Or Ms. Fritz, will you please proceed with the roll call vote?
Councilmember Mendoza.
You're on mute.
Yes.
Councilmember Gonzalez, absent. Councilmember Ballin.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Pacheco.
Yes.
Mayor Fajardo.
Yes. The motion carries. We're adjourned at 9:07 p.m. Thank you all so much.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.